G'day everyone, it's Frank here, and I'm at a car park in Melbourne somewhere, and at a park. I just did my walk, and the topic that I want to bring to you today is the truth about Noah, and it revolves around a film, a 2014 film with Russell Crowe. He starred in the movie of the name and of the person Noah. Now, the reason why I bring this up, it's a topic that I wasn't even thinking about, but it was from my daughter actually. Last few days, she's been talking about salvation, about death, and she's only 7. And just yesterday, she brought about the flood. Like, I don't know where these are coming from, but I'm happy that she's wanting to talk, right? And so we've been having some really nice discussions, me and her. Now, she's 7 years old, and I'm really grateful that she's actually interested in such subjects. And so it dawned on me, why don't we talk about Noah? Because a lot of people know the story about Noah, may have seen that movie. Now, I'm going to look at it a little bit. It's a interesting movie. It was the person who directed that movie in 2014 was a director by the name of Darren Aronofsky, and according to the New York Times, this man is a self-described atheist and described the movie as the least biblical film ever made. First, when you've seen this movie, or if not, I don't know, it's up to you, but you would think that they would at least get the name or the character right. I don't think they did. The director didn't anyway. However, some positives from that. I think the positive was that the film shows or portrays Noah as somebody who was concerned about sin and judgment. So that was a positive, if you like. The negative was there's a lot of political agenda in there with the environment movement. So maybe the climate change, maybe that was leaning towards that a lot. Besides the inaccuracies of the film, and I'm going to go through that briefly, some of the criticism, of course, when you look at some of the reviews, which I did, you get a lot of religious groups, talks about, obviously the loose interpretation from the Bible that many people have respected, including Jews and Christians and even Muslims. So usually what they will say, that it's an artistic license has been taken. That's the phrase that they use as to the direction that film went. And so that's why supporters of that film don't say it's a sermon or it's really based on truth, but it's just based on that license for them to convey a message without being disrespectful to the Bible. The film itself grossed about 380 million. Now, the reason why I say this is because even though you may or may not want to watch a movie like that, it does give an opportunity to speak to people about the Bible and about bringing up such topics like this, or if there's a movie that that people are talking about. People know the story about Noah. Even my daughter, who's 7, she knows the story about Noah, and it's not like I sit there and talk to her about it either. So what am I gleaning from that? When we look at what God said to Noah, I mean, for example, in the decision in the movie to portray the Creator's communication as being exclusively with Noah and in strange visions, that's part of the movie, is contrary to Genesis 9:1, where it says, "So God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." That's the New King James Version. And throughout the Bible, and God's communication continues from verses 2 through to 17, where he gives Noah's family new instructions about their relationship with the animals, with humans, what they could eat, the consequences of shedding of blood, and a new covenant that reassured them all life on earth would never be destroyed again. And that was the answer to my daughter's question about would God bring about a huge flood again. That's Genesis 8:21, if you're interested. A film critic commented on the film's decision to depict fallen angels as materialized rock creatures who assist Noah in his ark building as if they were sentient construction cranes. This portrayal contradicts the Bible's view of 1 Peter 3:19-20, that contrary to acting as friendly co-workers, wicked spirits were disobedient in the days of Noah and contributed to the violence. We call them also the Nephilim. Taking its artistic license from Genesis 9:20-22 about Noah's drunkenness, the film presents an exhausted survivor who feels tremendous guilt over being saved. But instead of agonizing over why he and his family were spared destruction as depicted in the film, Genesis 7:1 tells us God explained to Noah, "Come into the ark, and you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me." So that's how God viewed Noah, right? So if God praised Noah for being righteous, how likely would Noah have felt unworthy of survival, as opposite to the film, seeing that he also walked with God and condemned the violent world as a preacher of righteousness, according to Genesis 6:9 and 2 Peter 2:5. So he was a courageous individual, warning people, as it were, as building and so on. But how did the people respond to Noah? Well, obviously not too good, but we'll look at Jesus' words later on about that. Most people still believe today, now this is quite interesting if you look in the Bible account, that two of each animal entered into the ark, right? Most people believe that two of each animal entered into the ark. Well, the Bible gives us a surprising distinction between certain kinds of animals at Genesis 7:2. It says here, God said, "You shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, male and female. 2 of each animals that are unclean, a male and his female." So did you notice that clean animals went into the ark in groups of 7? So is this just a myth? Some food for thought. Well, the Bible indicates that Noah was a very real person. We know Jesus, Peter, and many of the other writers, Paul, or the writer of Hebrews, specifically identifies Noah, and they use him as an example. Now, if he was just a myth, why would you use a myth as an example for others, especially believers, to follow and as a warning to the last days of the world? So obviously they never thought of him as a myth. He's also pointed in the genealogies that come through to Jesus in Matthew and Luke. They use Noah as a point of reference. Also, what's interesting about Noah's flood, the story of the worldwide flood in which humans and animal life was saved from extinction by a man who built a vessel, has been documented all around the world, from Egypt, Syria, Greece, Europe, India, Australia, Central America, North America, South America, and beyond. This so-called mythical story, as some people like to sort of portray it, but no, I mean it's global. Everyone talks about Noah. Some experts, note this, some experts estimate that more than 500 flood legends have been told in different civilizations around the world, adding weight to the belief that such a catastrophic event must have happened. The oldest written account, the Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh, Okay, it is calculated to have been written between 1900 and 1700 BC. So, while Noah, as an eyewitness, no doubt recorded his original account before the Epic of Gilgamesh, it was some 850 years after the flood that Moses put the global deluge into writing. So, unlike most flood legends, however, the Bible's account of the deluge is rich with the kind of details that would matter to a historian, not a fanciful writer as some of these people are with their movies, unfortunately. So if you want to look more about Noah, you can go to the book of Genesis, chapter 6 and 7. Going back now, just sort of clearing up some of these points. Now, for the record, there is no indication in the Bible that fallen angels helped Noah build the ark, okay? And that Noah was morally confused or felt any guilt for surviving the flood, and that Noah was the only one to hear the voice of God, or that Noah engaged in violent confrontation with his contemporaries. That's contrary. So how did the people respond to Noah's ark building? Well, in Matthew 24, 37, 39, Jesus talks about them being married and getting married and all that sort of stuff. They were busy with life. The vast majority of them were caught up, as it were, off guard. And so Jesus then compared that time, Noah's time, with today, and he's saying he warned believers back then, and I guess you could say to those who are living through to the tribulation, that the vast majority would again be caught off when the Son of Man arrives to bring lasting peace on earth. Should this concern us today? And if you're not sure where that is, it's in Matthew chapter 24. I've got it here. I'll read it to you. Matthew 24, and that's 37 to 39. Matthew 24. He says, "But as for the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them away. So also will be the coming of the Son of Man." So that's the warning there. It will catch people off guard. It will, definitely. Jesus says so. So how can we use then these sort of movies like Noah today? I guess because the movie had a positive point about sin and salvation, this is really a way you can extract something from it to help somebody else. The question we can ask is, how can I be saved from the penalty of sin and its power over my life? That's an important question you can ask somebody. How can we do it, right? We see that the ark was God's instrument of salvation for Noah. Today, what is the instrument for salvation? Well, isn't it the cross, the death and resurrection of Jesus? It's both. It's not just his death, it's also his resurrection. So the cross is the ultimate answer, or the antidote to the sin issue today. And this is why the Apostle Peter compares the ark to the death and resurrection of Christ that atones for our sins, and that the ark and also provides salvation. And it's recorded in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 to 21. So you can use that to help people this account. And so let's conclude by saying, is it possible that by diluting the real impact of the global flood in a sweeping film production, that people will question the importance of obedience to God as a key to survival? You see, we can hear the message, and even as believers, today. We're living in a time where it doesn't, even though we're under grace, it's really important that, like, as a loving father, as a believer, our Father wants us to be obedient to His word so that we don't hurt ourselves and we don't suffer the consequences of our actions, because we have a choice, flesh or the spirit. We won't lose our salvation if we do the wrong thing, but it will certainly cause us to carry unnecessary burdens that we wouldn't have to if we yield to the Spirit. That's my thought on that point. But for other people, though, when they see these movies, we can say, well, this is the way to be saved. It's believing in Jesus, and you can use John 3:16 as a starting point. So, concluding point, to be careful. Somebody, when we watch these movies, they are rocking our boat. They have different agendas. And some of them are hoping that we'll follow their course of reasoning. But always stick to the scriptures. Always use the Bible as a reference for what is truth. And especially in this case, the truth about Noah. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm really, what fascinates me about all this is hearing my young daughter talking about matters of such nature that gives me an opportunity to share with her the truth about who God is and her salvation and what the future holds. It's just it's a wonderful thing. And when you share the good news, the gospel, to others, I'm sure it'll bring delight to them. So never be afraid to take advantage of movies or situations where people are thinking. Most people know the story of Noah, so it doesn't hurt to just freshen our minds over these things, be a little bit prepared. If you see something, know that, if a lot of people are watching it, then you can have a way to approach the subject and find the good points and use them, or even the negative points, and swing them around to what the Bible actually says on the subject. That will benefit them as well. Once again, thanks again, guys. That's a different change of topic, but I hope you've enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye.